Garou, Kiritsugu Emiya, and Scar. What do these three edgelords of anime have in common? Well, they want you dead. Not you specifically, but just you. Does that make sense? I'm assuming you're thinking no, and I don't blame you. I mean, you haven't watched this video yet after all. Well, what I mean when I say that these three pillars of revenge arcs want you sleeping with the fishes will become much more clear as we go on. But in the meantime, I have a question for you, and I want you to ask yourself this as you imagine the worst thing that's ever happened to you. And the question I want you to ask is, why me? Now, I know you weren't expecting to have your day ruined by a random anime video essay on YouTube, but I promise the question is a necessary one that each of these three characters struggled to answer. After all, the revenge character has nothing but one thing on their mind. Can you guess it? That's right, it's revenge, duh. This type of character tends to be used as a device by the storyteller to stand on a soapbox and preach about understanding, forgiveness, and ending the cycle of hatred that's slowly killing us as a society. X character has something terrible happen to them in their past at the hands of Y group, leading X character to want to exact revenge on Y group in hopes of ridding the world of the awful injustice that Y group has committed. And before you know it, you've got a bunch of X's and Y's fighting all over the place, like that algebra homework you never bothered to do, you little stinker. The revenge character goes to these great lengths for the sake of retribution, and usually convinces themselves that it's in the name of justice and for the greater good. They think, I'll get rid of these people so that no one else has to suffer like I did. And as your classic redemption arc goes, they tend to see the error of their ways in the end, turn a new leaf, and become good guys again. Then it's usually some form of happily ever after for them. Although admittedly kind of cringy, I've always liked this character trope because it delivers a pretty important message disguised in the form of Sigma male bravado and unwavering determination. But to me, these characters mean much more than just a cool character delivering a message of violence isn't the answer. That's good and all, but what's more important in my opinion is how I think this character trope showcases the most realistic depiction of a regular person. Someone that isn't the master of their own emotions yet, and someone that finds it easier to get rid of their problems than simply accepting them and moving on. I mean, everyone's been screwed over in one way or another. I'm sure you could think of a moment in your life where you've been done seriously dirty, and it's something you think about from time to time with equal resentment and rage as the day that it happened. So the point of this video is to hopefully help you find some peace in these situations through detailing the journeys of each one of these three characters. If what I said doesn't even apply to you though, then just sit back and enjoy the breakdown of some of the most cool and iconic characters in anime, starting with Now, when I was picking characters that I felt best fit this trope and the message I'm trying to deliver here, a lot of iconic ones came to mind. For example, Kurapika from Hunter x Hunter, who sought revenge against the Phantom Troop for wiping out his clan, and Sasuke from Naruto for eventually wanting to destroy the Leaf Village for facilitating the murder of his people. But I think Scar is a better fit above all these guys for one simple reason. He wants them all dead. See, characters like Kurapika and Sasuke had their hatred concentrated on a specific group, versus the world as a whole essentially. Kurapika wanted to take out the Phantom Troop, not every hunter. Sasuke wanted to take out the Leaf Village at some point, but not every ninja on the planet. This is where Scar is unique. See, in the beginning, Scar was a young man of Ishval, a tumultuous small nation within a nation that would soon become the center of some of the worst human atrocities ever committed. The people of Ishval had clashed several times with the central government of Greater Armistice in the past, and had been annexed to a region in the southeast of the nation, near the eastern desert. Though religious and cultural tensions continued between Ishvalans and Amistrians, relative peace had been achieved between the two until 1901, when an Amistrian soldier accidentally shot and killed an Ishvalan child. In reality, this soldier was actually the homunculus Envy in disguise, and the killing was deliberate. The area exploded in a storm of riots and protests, until the situation had become an all-out civil war, causing massive casualties on both sides. The fighting continued to spread until the entire east area of Amistris had become a war zone. So after 7 years of war, Amistrian Führer King Bradley issued Order 3066, sending state alchemists into the front lines to act as human weapons. These are individuals trained in the arts of alchemy, something that seemed to give these individuals the ability to command the elements in various ways and showcase godlike power. This decision decisively and horrifically ended the war, with the territory of Ishval being occupied by Amistrian soldiers and the surviving Ishvalans spread throughout the country as refugees. Scar, being in the middle of this terrible war, didn't just lose a family member, he lost his entire people and what was left of his peaceful monk life. His brother, a man who believed in peace, sacrifice, and most importantly understanding, ended up giving up his own arm to save Scar from being killed by state alchemist Solth J. Kimbley. Not only did his arm save his life, it contained alchemical symbols that allowed Scar to use alchemy in a devastating way. See, alchemy is all about deconstructing something and reconstructing it into something new. Nothing is created out of thin air in alchemy. That's why practitioners of this field abide by the rule of equivalent exchange. When something is created, another of equal value must be given up. Well, the symbols on Scar's arm gave him the formula of deconstruction. Although his brother saved his life, Scar was still left badly injured, and some volunteer Emistrian doctors took it upon themselves to save his life, and they were successful. He wakes up in a rage, remembering his brother had just been killed, and in this fit of rage, kills the doctors that saved his life, seeing them as the enemy. He then used his newfound power to enact his revenge on the ones responsible for the one-sided slaughter of his people, the state alchemists. But he didn't narrow it down to the ones that were part of the bloodshed. He simply wanted all state alchemists dead. He embarks on a quest of violently killing every state alchemist one by one, starting with the ones directly involved in the war. And I use the word violently pretty lightly because what Scar was doing to these guys was pretty brutal. He engages in intense hand-to-hand combat until he can get close enough to physically touch them. Once he manages to get a firm grip on their heads with the hand holding all the symbols, he'd use the alchemy abilities they grant him to deconstruct everything going on up in that noggin of theirs. In other words, he literally scrambled their brains and turned it into soup. He'd do the very same thing with every alchemist he encountered, and this resulted in him eventually meeting the main character of the series, Edward Elric, and they'd have some pretty heated battles. At some point, it was revealed that Edward's close childhood friend Winry was the daughter of the two volunteer doctors Scar had killed when he first woke up all those years ago. In response to this massive revelation, Winry holds a gun to Scar, in perfect position to kill him and enact her revenge on the guy that made her an orphan. He even points out that he accepts this fate because it's in the name of retribution, the same thing he used to justify all of his killings. However, she's reluctant to do so, and Edward pleads with her not to become a killer like him. In an instant, Scar reaches to eliminate Winry, but Edward jumps in front of her. Scar then stops in shock, as he realizes that this situation is the exact one he was in when his brother sacrificed himself to save him, except in this case, Scar is the aggressor here. This moment begins planting the seeds of doubt in Scar's mind, forcing him to question why he's really doing what he's doing, and from there on out, Scar's journey slowly transitions from one of wanting to kill all state alchemists to understanding why the bloodshed even occurred in the first place, in hopes of finding some kind of closure. Eventually, Ed and El become the talking reminders of everything Scar despises, yet the more he faces them, the more he's hit with the realization that not everyone involved in alchemy is out to ruin Ishval. In fact, some are just trying to make amends or save the people they love. Soon enough, Scar even spares the life of Tim Marco, one of the men directly connected to the very horrors of the Ishval War. He was the one responsible for the creation of the Philosopher's Stone, a creation that allowed alchemists to bypass the laws of equivalent exchange and allow them to actually create anything out of thin air. Or at least this was the idea, until it was revealed that a Philosopher's Stone takes many innocent lives as sacrifice to create, meaning equivalent exchange had always been at play. It's a monumental move for Scar, who's basically spent his whole life with a no mercy policy. But with each act of restraint, he's slowly pulling himself out of the spiral of rage. He's starting to see that life isn't just black and white, or in his case, destroy everything or be destroyed. He's realizing that revenge may have given him a sense of purpose, but it's also dragged him down. Now this is where Scar flips the script. Instead of using his brother's alchemical tattoo only for destruction, he decides to add something new, symbols of reconstruction on his other arm. From now on, his powers aren't just about breaking things, but also putting them back together. He's embracing both destruction and creation. We see Scar's final battle against the past, specifically against King Bradley, aka Wrath, the ultimate enemy, the one who had essentially ordered the extermination of his people. Scar doesn't just bring his destruction arm to this fight. He utilizes both sides of alchemy this time, destruction and creation, symbolizing his new willingness to leave everything behind and start anew. This fight isn't just punches and alchemical showdowns, although it's a fight that would make any battle shonen enjoyer go ooh woo. It's Scar's way of exercising his demons. For him, it's a battle to prove that he's no longer chained to the past. He's facing Wrath with a balance of everything he's learned, about pain, loss, but also maybe even forgiveness. Scar's journey is a microcosm of one of the major points Full Metal Alchemist tries to convey as a whole, and that's that hatred and resentment don't go away after the source of these emotions is eliminated, or even if you learn to suppress these feelings. They may never go away, but the key is to learn to face all the malice head on and embrace it until they become part of you, and this in turn destroys the person you once were to create someone new. Yeah, you can say it's a cop-out, but it's better than the alternative, which would be simply to get rid of anything that ever gives you trouble, because that would only leave you with nothing. And that's a lesson our next guy had to learn in a truly tragic way. But first, in today's video, as you've seen and will continue to see, the characters we're discussing today have a lot of personal issues, to say the least. They've all become so overwhelmed with fear and anxiety, their response is to lash out at the world around them and go on a journey of self-loathing. And honestly, people in real life deal with those types of emotions too, for different reasons of course. I mean, I know I definitely have my name's anime anxiety for a reason. That's where today's sponsor comes to the rescue. BetterHelp, an online platform that makes starting therapy easier. As we head into the new year, everyone talks about reinventing themselves, but let's be real, most resolutions fade by February. Real change usually comes from small, consistent habits. For me, one habit that's actually helped me this past year is pausing to check in on myself once in a while, instead of trying to bulldoze through stress while recording and working on videos. And honestly, it's helped me become way less prone to burning out. Therapy works the same way. It gives you a space to understand why you think and react the way you do and helps you build steady, lasting growth instead of quick fixes. With BetterHelp, you simply fill out a short questionnaire and can get matched with a therapist in as little as a couple of days, based on your preferences and over a decade of matching expertise. If the match isn't the right fit for you, then you can switch anytime at no cost. And you'll be joining over 6 million people who have used BetterHelp to work on their mental well-being. So click the link in the description below or go to betterhelp.com/animeanxiety to get 10% off your first month of therapy. So do that, but for now, back to the video. Kiritsugu was born into a world much like ours, except just imagine that instead of the Illuminati we have here, they have the Mages Association, and it's actually real. Don't get mad at me, conspiracy theorists. Here there exists a secret world of real-life magic, kept secret by mages that have passed on their craft from generation to generation, with one law that rules over all of them. Magic must be kept a secret to the outside world. For this reason, it leads to scenarios where some mages become a danger to this rule, for one reason or another, and are subsequently hunted down. This includes Kiritsugu's father, Kiritsugu Emiya, a mage perpetually on the run, and therefore Kiritsugu spent much of his young life wandering around the world with his father. Eventually, they settled on Alimango Island for a year. He became friends with and soon developed a crush on Noritaka's assistant, a local girl named Shirley. Most people on the island thought of Noritaka as a mad scientist of sorts, wasting his time on silly experiments. On the other hand, Shirley wholeheartedly believed that Noritaka's work was essential and one that could save the world. This was an opinion only she and Kiritsugu, who Shirley would nickname Carrie, passionately believed, and they bonded over this shared feeling. Carrie even made a promise to her that he would save the world himself one day, and she didn't roll her eyes at the goal. She truly believed him. However, disaster struck one day when Shirley drank a potion Noritaka had been working on, attempting to prove that his work was as revolutionary as she thought it was. Unfortunately, this turned her into a dead apostle, or in other words, a contagious zombie. She pleaded for Kiritsugu to kill her, but he refused and fled. This leads to the entire village slowly being turned into a swarm of dead apostles. Their village then gets overrun by executors from the church and enforcers from the association. Both groups had arrived when they heard rumors of a mage researching into vampires, aka Noritaka. To cover up the incident and preserve the secret of magic, they went on to wipe out everyone. Kiritsugu was the only survivor of the cleansing, saved by Natalia Kaminsky, a freelancer and part-time enforcer who was also there looking for information on the mage responsible. Returning to the hidden Emiya residence, Kiritsugu confronted his father on his research and Shirley's death. Noritaka explained that he wanted to become a dead apostle to continue his research on magecraft longer. His cold indifference to the disaster that had just occurred completely shattered the image he had of his father. Instead of a righteous scientist seeking knowledge in pursuit of world peace, he was a cold-hearted man, simply looking to quench his selfish pursuit of knowledge, regardless of whose expense it might come at. He labeled Shirley's death as a simple inconvenience, and Carrie, being someone who cherished her so much in life, stabs and then shoots his own father to death, attempting to keep his promise to Shirley of saving the world by ending the life of a monster. Ironically, he could have prevented the deaths of many people on the island if he had that same resolve when Shirley first asked him to take her out, but he wavered. This is a fact that he'll carry with him the rest of his life. In the end, Natalia figured that the only person who could prevent Noritaka from escaping and ensure his death was his own son, and she wound up taking Kiritsugu with her. But she's not there to coddle him. Nope, she's here to show him the art of, well, murder for the greater good. Young Carrie quickly trades in whatever remnants of childhood innocence he has left for a sniper rifle and a single mission: save the world by any means necessary. Natalia teaches him her twisted version of utilitarianism: kill a few to save the many. And Kiritsugu, he takes to it like a fish to water, remembering his promise he made to Shirley and what his inaction led to for the rest of the island that fateful day. Years later, on a mission to take down a heretical mage that was turning people into ghouls, Kiritsugu was faced with a similar situation as on the island, this time with a different result. Natalia was on board of an airplane containing the target. When things go awry, every passenger ends up becoming a ghoul, and Kiritsugu was left choosing between letting the plane land and risking an outbreak, or shooting it down right there and then. Only problem is, that would mean killing Natalia too. This time, he makes the choice he feels he should have made with Shirley. He shoots down the plane and then collapses in despair, realizing that fulfilling his promise of saving the world meant constantly staining his hands with the blood of others, and worst of all, the people closest to him. Unfortunately, that's a theme that'll keep coming into play throughout his life. Now fast forward to the main events of the series, the Fourth Holy Grail War. A winner-take-all death battle between chosen mages, all waging war in order to win a prize of unimaginable power, the Holy Grail. This item is said to have the power to grant any one wish of the wielder, no matter how impossible it may seem. Kiritsugu's got himself a family now, courtesy of the Ainsburns, one of the three great mage families, who hand him a lovely homunculus wife, and later a daughter, Eliasville. But let's be real, it's not like he's in it for a happy family life. He's here for the Grail, the supposed miracle device that'll grant his wish of world peace. Now remember, this is essentially a death match between mages. However, there still exists a code of honor that each mage must abide by. For example, everything they do during the war still has to prioritize preserving the secret of magic from the outside world. So pretty much, yeah, you can kill each other, but just be classy about it. Well, it just so happens, Kiritsugu's never cared much for the rules of the mage world, and he wasn't going to start caring during the war. He did whatever he could to win, bringing bombs and bullets to magic fights. Although he's painted as the good guy in this whole war, he's responsible for some of the most cold-hearted moments in the series as well. One particular moment that highlights his ruthlessness is when he makes a truce with Kenneth El Malloy, one of the participants in the war, in order to give him and his lover a way out. However, this all ended up being a trap that resulted in the assassination of the mage, his lover, and their servant, as Carrie gained control of him and commanded the heroic spirit to commit suicide. So after all the heartache, the bloodshed, and the emotional roller coaster that was the Grail War, Kiritsugu finally wins. Sort of. He finally gets to the Grail, and what does he find out? It's basically a cursed monkey's paw in cup form. The Grail, it's revealed, is about to start the equivalent of an apocalyptic purge if Kiritsugu dares to make a wish. It turns out the Grail can't grant a wish without a methodology of realizing it. In other words, the Grail only sought to grant his wish by doing what he's always done, but this time in his place, which is to kill. This meant that all of humanity would be sacrificed to finally bring about world peace for Kiritsugu and his family. In a heartbreaking moment of clarity, he rejects the Grail and orders it to be destroyed. However, Kiritsugu realized immediately after that this was a huge mistake. By leaving the greater Grail intact, mud from its core was able to spill onto the streets below, causing a fire that eventually destroyed a large part of the city. A physical representation of what his foolish dream caused throughout his life: more death and destruction. And here's where it all comes full circle. Kiritsugu is left to wander through the charred remains of the city he couldn't save, haunted by the very flames he thought he'd extinguished. But among the wreckage he finds a child, Shiro. In a rare glimmer of hope, Kiritsugu takes him in, hoping to pass on the dream of a hero of justice, even if he couldn't become one himself. Shiro would later describe the scene with this haunting recollection: that man, he looked happier than anyone I'd ever seen, even though he'd lost everything. You know the saying, save a life, save yourself? Kiritsugu embodied this in his last moments, giving Shiro a chance to live out the dream he could never achieve. In the end though, he managed to redeem himself in a sense, dropping his merciless facade and preventing human extinction, something our third and last guy did not manage to do. In contrast, he had to witness the death of everyone, before realizing the error of his ways. Garou is one of the most iconic and beloved characters in One Punch Man. In a series full of lighthearted adventures and cookie-cutter heroes, Garou comes as a jarring example of how a world full of heroes can still be a cruel one. As a child, Garou was unpopular and a social outcast. He also seemed to be neglected by his parents, as they never came to his aid throughout his life, even when he was later arrested. At school, while he was reading a book, a popular boy named Tachan and another student were playing heroes. After Garou tried to make Tachan realize it was dangerous to kick another student from high ground, Tachan declared Garou to be the new villain and himself as Justice Man. He tried to kick Garou dodged, but after Tachan missed and hurt himself, to which Garou apologizes, Tachan asked him what he was doing. He then points to him and calls on other boys to hold Garou down, and Tachan kicks him in the face. Later, Garou tried to stand up for himself by challenging Tachan to a fight. But the other children gathered around and started defending Tachan, saying it was just how the game works. Tachan then cowardly asked other students to pin Garou to the ground and called the teacher while running away. Garou noticed how Tachan was the one always smiling, liked by everyone and was good at everything, even though he was a jerk, while Garou, on the other hand, was alone, gloomy, and had no friends. When talking to his uncaring and unsympathetic teacher, he ignored Garou and simply lectured him on how he should not be fighting and what might have happened if he had continued, as well as reprimanding him by not distinguishing reality from a game. After he was done, he forced the crying Garou to apologize, then notified his parents. Garou eventually snapped, coming to see the fraudulent heroes as nothing more than a bunch of self-righteous bullies who preyed on the weak and unfairly dictated what justice was. To Garou, a monster was the equivalent of the undesirables of the world, like him, so that's why he'd get so frustrated when watching shows like Justice Man. There he'd watch as the monsters did their best to achieve their goals, only for the heroes to come in and take a dump on the monsters' hopes and dreams. He sympathized with the villains of the series because they were set up to fail no matter how hard they tried, just like him. Soon enough, Garou decides that he's tired of the status quo, where bullies that masquerade as heroes get to decide who prospers and who doesn't. He sets out to flip the script and create a new world order, one where he becomes the ultimate evil, feared by both monsters and heroes alike, and only then will true peace be achieved, through having the world face one common enemy, him. To accomplish this goal, however, he had to become strong. Because of this, he decided to venture to Bang's dojo during his adolescence, traveling a great distance to meet the martial artist. When he arrived at the dojo, he rudely demanded to know if Bang was strong. Sourface asked Bang if he should throw Garou out, but the hero was impressed by Garou's determination, telling Sourface to feed him until he's full when he wakes up. After this, Bang accepts Garou as a student, and Garou quickly becomes the top student at Bang's dojo. 6 months prior to the Super Fight martial arts tournament that Saitama attended, he decided that he had nothing left to learn, and rampaged through the dojo, taking out many of the students, including Sourface. He then received a bad beating from Bang and was expelled from the dojo, thus beginning his infamous crusade against all heroes. As he went on his hero hunt, Garou lived by his own code. He didn't kill anyone and usually didn't take on anyone weaker than himself, making exceptions even in heated battles. When he fought Metal Bat, for instance, and Metal Bat's sister showed up, Garou stopped himself, muttering, "I'm a monster, not a psycho." This strange morality set him apart, showing that he wasn't as heartless as he tried to make himself out to be. Soon after starting his hero slaughter, he encountered Terrio, a weird-looking kid with a hero catalog. It's important to note that the relationship between Garou and Terrio would serve a more and more important role as his journey goes on. Terrio becomes a reflection of Garou's younger self, as we see him also get bullied by other kids, making him one of the undesirables Garou wanted to stand up for. He also ends up needing to save Terrio at various points in the story, giving us signs that although Garou was in the middle of a monstrous rampage, he still had his human side. Terrio essentially became a representation of Garou's humanity, simply trying to cling on as he slowly transforms into a monster with each intense fight. After fighting S-Class hero Super Alloy Darkshine in the Underground Monster Association base, Garou experiences a transformation that takes his strength to new heights, but also leaves him in a mindless feral state. He makes it to the surface and faces off against his old master Bang, who decides he's gonna go all out one last time to put down his former student for good. The battle is intense, with Bang landing a solid blow to Garou's face that seems to knock him back to his senses and cracks his monster shell. However, Garou manages to lightly graze Bang, which was enough to knock him out cold. After flexing his new monster strength on some monsters and heroes, he finally encounters Saitama, and a backhanded smack from him makes him realize that he had faced him several times before, getting knocked out by him in every encounter. This kicks off the most iconic fight in the entire series, where the unstoppable force finally faces off against the bald, immovable object. The battle eventually leaves Garou crash landing near Terrio. When Terrio sees Garou, he seems unfazed by his evolving monstrous appearance. Even as he stands looking like some kind of gargoyle right in front of him, he tells Garou to stop what he's doing because people will think that he's evil, when Terrio himself knows that he's really a hero, the coolest hero ever. Seeing this, Saitama assures him that he'll stop Garou but not kill him. Despite Garou's constant power-ups, nothing he did phased Saitama. This sends Garou into an internal despair, seeing Saitama as the embodiment of all the unfairness in the world. He was just like that kid Tachan that would beat him up as a kid, with a fight so one-sided that it seemed he never had a chance from the very start, just like the monsters from the Justice Man TV show he watched. He refuses to accept defeat, however, and charges at Saitama, who launches him into the air with a solid punch. Just then, the monster god appeared, taking on the form of Garou's former master, Bang, and offers Garou divine power. Though wary, Garou believes that he refuses, but in simply slapping the man's hand away, this begins the power granting process. Garou absorbs the power, transforming into a fierce, godlike cosmic version of himself. With the enhanced power received from God, and equipped with a comprehensive understanding of cosmic energies and forces, Garou unleashes a barrage of nuclear explosions from his fist towards Saitama. He surprisingly demonstrates the ability to copy Saitama's technique and strength as well, utilizing his own version of consecutive normal punches against him. He eventually hits Saitama with a gamma ray burst attack, sending the hero flying towards an unknown direction. This directs the new cosmic Garou's focus to the crowd of heroes and civilians nearby, who cower in fear at the sight of the godlike being. Little did Garou know, this form causes him to emit constant cosmic radiation that poisons everyone around him, causing everyone to collapse with blood seeping out of their nose and eyes. Soon, Blast appears, and explains to him that his form is killing everyone and everything around him. Garou simply laughs and proclaims how he looks like a real symbol of fear, since his very presence now causes death. One detail to acknowledge at this point though, is that so far, Garou hasn't ever killed an innocent person. Sure, he's beat plenty of them half to death, and killed tons of monsters, but he's never outright killed an innocent person. I point this out now because that soon changes. But not before we get some interesting internal dialogue from him. That becomes much more important if you know what happens a little later. First, he thinks of something Terrio said to him earlier, when he calls him the coolest hero ever. With that thought, he says goodbye to Terrio, indicating that he's officially committed to becoming truly evil. Bang stands up to him as his body starts to break down from the radiation, and tells Garou that he'll have to kill him first if he wants to go any further. Garou then thinks to himself, absolute evil doesn't need anyone to understand it. Others will be miserable just by being around it. Finish the old man off right here. I'll never see Terrio again either. That's how it needs to be, for his sake as well. Here we see that Garou is almost hyping himself up to go through with killing Bang. He tries justifying it as a form of mercy for the world he's about to create, and also means that he'll never see Terrio again. And this is followed by a scene of Terrio lying face down on the ground with blood pooling from his mouth, likely due to Garou's radiation, seemingly dead. Garou doesn't become aware of this until later, but first, he goes on to have a cosmic level battle with Blast, ending with one of the most iconic moments in the entire series, and shows Garou's first ever cold-hearted kill. He picks up the limbless body of Genos and brutally rips out his energy core, killing the hero instantly. He then goes on to completely destroy his body in order to anger Saitama and draw out his full strength. In a deep rage, Saitama goes all out, and this leads to a solar system-wide battle between the two, ending with Saitama delivering a decisive final blow that has them crash landing back on Earth. Here I'm gonna read straight from the manga what happens next, and it's the first time that Garou openly reveals what his true goal has been this entire time. As Garou lays defeated, he says, "What's wrong? Do it. Why aren't you killing me?" Saitama responds by saying, "Compared to people like you with quick costume changes or King, I really hate the fact that I'm not cut out for all this, but it's because I'm a hero. Not to mention, it was also that kid's final request that I stop you without killing you." Garou's confused at what he means by final request. That's when he sees Terrio's lifeless body in the distance. He then screams in despair, and starts frantically running away from the direction that Teruo is, probably trying to foolishly separate himself from Teruo so he doesn't get hit with more radiation although he's already dead. Saitama points out that he's going in the opposite direction, but Garou continues frantically running and crying, saying, "It's my fault, I was too close to you," and falls flat on his face. As he's sulking on the ground, he thinks, "Teruo, that's right, I'm that ominous future, huh?" He then goes on to say, "It's laughable. If I can't beat you, I can't become absolute evil. And then the hero that takes me down says I'm not cut out to be a hero. You could at least act like one. If you could have just killed me with a smug look on your face, waving around your crazy idea of justice, I could have at least gone out like true evil. Now, the one I wanted to save first by changing the world," and Saitama cuts him off and says, "You wanted to save him? You weren't just clinging to him for support?" See, Garou never wanted Teruo to die. As I've already said, to Garou, Teruo symbolized his humanity, but more importantly, in a way he saw Teruo as his younger self. He wanted to create a world where people like Teruo wouldn't be bullied and had a fair shot at life, an option he never had. And if he was able to show Teruo this future, in a way he'd be showing his younger self, kind of saying, "Here, look, I did it." This is why when he sees Teruo dead on the ground, he realized that his flawed way of trying to achieve this peace was doomed from the very start. And what Saitama says about clinging onto Teruo for support instead of saving him is basically him telling Garou, "You weren't saving him, he was saving you," meaning he was keeping Garou from becoming a true monster. Now fully realizing the error of his ways, Garou manages to help Saitama travel back in time in order to stop all this from happening. Through a convoluted process I'll describe as, who cares, it's a manga, Saitama succeeds in this and stops Garou before their fight begins. Garou is then officially defeated, and is eventually arrested for minor crimes he committed, but is soon bailed out by Bang. It's also noted here that Garou's parents never bothered to even show up, so that just reinforces the idea that Garou was simply a troubled kid from a broken home that tried lashing out at the world. Only difference is that normally this means lighting garbage cans on fire or stealing bags of Cheetos from the grocery store. You know, just doing hood rat stuff with your friends. For Garou though, it led him to essentially put the entire planet in a microwave and kill everything. His big role in the story ends with him returning to Bang's dojo and even getting a part-time job. With that, he realized that his method of creating a better world was extremely flawed, and finally let go of all his resentments. See, that's the thing with all three of these guys. If you noticed, they all justified rage-filled murder by convincing themselves that it was for the good of the world. All three of them are good people at heart, and therefore can't reconcile with the fact that they are straight up taking human lives to achieve their goals, regardless of if they deserve it or not. So they essentially twist their own morality to the point where they see themselves as a martyr of sorts, doing the dirty work that needs to be done for the good of the world, when really, they're simply looking to calm the rage inside of them, caused by unfortunate tragedies in their life. And this is something I think we can all relate to in some way. Sure, there's plenty of themes and lessons you can get from these three characters, but one that I think is most relevant to us here is the desperate need for us to right the wrongs in our life, and how a lot of us are probably dealing with that in a pretty bad way. See, Scar, Emiya, and Garou, they all got dealt a bad hand, and experienced some truly unfortunate stuff at the hand of someone else. They felt helpless and angry at the fact that the current status quo allowed such tragedies to happen to them. But instead of finding a way to accept this loss and deal with it in a way that leaves them more at peace, they put the blame on some external force and create this black and white image in their minds that if this external problem is eliminated, then justice will be served, the world will be better for it, and therefore they'll finally find peace. In the case of Kiritsugu and Garou, they eventually realized that their way of solving their problem would mean the death of everyone, even the people they were trying to save. In the end though, these fellas learned to accept the life they were given, and not be so driven by the past. So, back to that question I asked you guys at the top of the video, to think to yourself, why me? I'll tell you right now that you're not gonna find a good answer to that question more than likely. Things just simply happen to people, whether good or bad, and you could do some things to make them more good than bad, but sometimes life just likes to fuck with people, that's the honest truth. But it's about my time to go now. I'll see you in the next one.